Every day you wake up carrying the ghost of who you used to be. Without realizing it, you're dragging chains forged from old habits, old fears, and old failures. That voice in your head that tells you, "This is just how I am," isn't your friend, it's your captor. The Stoics knew something about this weight. They understood that your past is not your destiny, that the truest power lies in burning the old map of who you were and redrawing it by your own hand. This is not a motivational speech. This is a war strategy. If you want to live freely, you must learn to kill the old version of yourself. The version who clings to destructive habits and impulses, to self-pity, indecision, overthinking, and resentment. The version who's reactive, fearful, and stagnant. This isn't just about improvement, it's about transformation. And the Stoics left us the tools. Your old self believes there's always time, that you can delay becoming who you want to be or doing what you need to do. The Stoics knew better. Life is short, the clock is ticking. If you do not kill the old version of yourself today, it may bury you tomorrow. There are no guarantees you will wake up tomorrow with another chance to change. Every day you hesitate, you gamble with the one thing you can never get back. So today, we go deep. Chapter by chapter, I will walk you through the philosophical framework and the ruthless, liberating mindset you must adopt to kill the old version of yourself and build the person you want to be, the person you were meant to be, and do what you need to do. Chapter 1. The Art of Self-Renewal. The philosopher Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. But before you can become who you want to be, you must be willing to lay the old you to rest." That doesn't mean a physical death. It means a shedding, a molting of everything that holds you back, everything outdated, worn, and weak within you. What the Stoics referred to as voluntary death was not an end, but a rebirth. The courageous decision to abandon the ego and self-image you've spent years, sometimes decades, carefully constructing and defending. Most people clutch their old identity because it feels safe. Even if it causes them misery, it's familiar. There is a strange comfort in predictability, even if that predictability is destructive. You've played the same character in your mind's story for so long that the very idea of rewriting the script unsettles you. It feels like stepping off a cliff without knowing what's beneath. You may have been the overthinker, the procrastinator, the victim of your own narrative, and because you've lived so long inside that story, you start to believe that's all you can ever be. The mind loves the familiar, and so it resists change, even when that change is the key to your freedom. The Stoics taught that identity is not rigid, it's clay, not stone. It is shaped and reshaped by habits, actions, choices, and thoughts. You are not trapped by who you've been. That trap is an illusion built by fear and reinforced by repetition. When you truly understand this, something shatters inside you. The illusion falls away, and you can finally see that you are not chained to your old self unless you choose to hold the chain. But understanding is not enough. It is merely the spark that lights the fire. The real work begins in the furnace of action. Knowledge without action is self-deception, a false comfort that allows you to feel like you are progressing without actually changing. To truly evolve, you must move beyond comprehension and step into the arena of deliberate dismantling, tearing apart piece by piece the false identity you've worn like heavy armor for years, maybe even decades. You must stop idolizing the person you've outgrown. You must look in the mirror every single day and ask yourself with ruthless honesty, who do I want to become? Not who others expect you to be, not who your past mistakes say you are, but who you choose to be, deliberately, consciously, without apology. And when the old stories scream back at you, when the voice of your former self whispers, "This is all you'll ever be," you must learn to reply, "You don't get to speak for me anymore. No past version of you has the right to dictate your future. Those ghosts have no authority here unless you hand it to them. True self-renewal begins not just the moment you intellectually understand that the old you is not who you are. It starts when you fully, viscerally, emotionally accept that the old you is merely who you were. And who you were is not your destiny. It is nothing more than the soil out of which you can choose to grow something entirely new, something stronger, wiser, freer. You are not bound by who you've been. You are liberated by who you are willing to become. Tonight, before you sleep, think of one trait you've been carrying that no longer serves you, whether it's procrastination, bitterness, or anxiety. Then think of the opposite trait. Tomorrow, act as if you are already that person. You will feel the resistance, but understand, that discomfort is the sound of your old self dying. Chapter 2. The Battlefield of Inner Dialogue. Seneca once warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Your old self doesn't reside in your muscles or your bones. It lives and breathes in the shadows of your inner dialogue. It hides in the stories you repeat to yourself, the quiet narrative you whisper every morning and every night about who you think you are and what you believe you can or cannot do. That voice is subtle, persistent, and deceiving. It sounds like you, but it isn't really you. It's a reflection of who you've been, not who you're capable of becoming. When you say, "That's just the way I am," or "I've always been like this," understand this. Those statements are not facts. They are scripts written over years of conditioning, fear, and repetition. And every time you speak them, even quietly in your mind, you breathe life into them. You reaffirm the chains you claim you want to break. You recite the lines of a character you're tired of playing, but you never stop to question why you're still playing the role. To kill the old self, you have to do more than merely wish for change. You must declare psychological war. You must rewrite your inner dialogue the way a general would rewrite war plans after a crushing defeat, with careful strategy, clarity, and unflinching honesty. You must recognize that your mind is not a neutral space. It is a battlefield. Every automatic thought, every self-defeating belief, every internal criticism is an arrow aimed at your potential. And like any general worth their salt, you cannot allow those arrows to fly unchallenged. You must interrupt those thoughts, not with blind positivity or hollow affirmations, but with reality. You must catch yourself in the act, confront the limiting belief, and replace it with something closer to the truth, not who you've been, but who you are choosing to become. You must learn to challenge every internal narrative as if your freedom depends on it, because it does. Whenever you catch yourself saying something limiting, stop and ask, "Is this objectively true?" Then reframe. Instead of "I can't," try "I haven't yet." Instead of "This is who I am," say, "This is who I've been. Who I will be is up to me." Chapter 3. Burn the comfort zone. The old version of you survives because, consciously or unconsciously, you protect it. You wrap it in layers of routine, in patterns of ease and predictability. You keep yourself warm and cozy inside those familiar behaviors, shielding yourself from discomfort, avoiding risk, and steering clear of any situation that threatens to disturb the fragile walls of your comfort zone. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This wasn't just philosophical poetry, it was a battle plan. Every obstacle you avoid is not neutral, it's a brick added to the fortress of your old self. Every difficulty you evade strengthens the grip of who you used to be. Your old self thrives in ease. It feeds off avoidance, procrastination, and the seductive promise of tomorrow. It grows fat and complacent when you choose the path of least resistance. It becomes stronger every time you allow yourself to linger in that soft space where nothing challenges you, where nothing forces you to stretch or suffer or sweat. And the person you want to become, they're not lounging inside the comfort zone like a passenger waiting to be called forward. That version of you is buried beneath discomfort, sweat, effort, and the sting of new challenges that make your muscles ache and your mind rebel. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you don't just stay the same, you regress. You give CPR to the version of you that you claim to despise. You breathe life into old habits and limiting beliefs. You feed the parasite that keeps you small. You tighten the chains around your potential. You make the cage stronger and the lock tighter, building the walls brick by brick with every excuse, every indulgence, every avoidance. Killing the old version of yourself is not a poetic act. It's an act of warfare, a declaration of rebellion against every lazy, fearful, self-sabotaging instinct that wants you to stay exactly where you are. It requires setting the comfort zone on fire and watching the ashes fall without a tear. It demands that you stop seeking shelter in routines that protect your mediocrity and start building habits that forge your resilience, your strength, your future. And make no mistake, the comfort zone is not just a place of rest. It is a graveyard of unrealized potential. It is the padded cell where your old self will quietly smother every dream you hold. You will not transform inside a space designed for stagnation. You will not evolve within walls built to keep you safe and small. Growth begins the moment you step outside of what is easy, into the unknown, into what tests you, stretches you, and sometimes breaks you. Growth starts when you lean into the discomfort, when you choose challenge over convenience, when you invite the friction of becoming. That's where your new self is waiting, not behind the curtain of comfort, but in the fire that will burn away everything you no longer need. Each morning, deliberately do one thing that makes you uncomfortable. Speak up when you normally stay quiet. Take the cold shower. Tackle the task you keep avoiding. You are not just doing hard things, you are sharpening a new identity. Chapter 4. Detach from the echoes of the past. The Stoics understood that the past is not real. It is a shadow we keep alive in our mind, a projection without substance that we nourish through repetition. It is not something we can touch or change. It exists only as a collection of images, regrets, and memories that we replay over and over like a broken record, convincing ourselves that these echoes somehow define who we are now. You've failed before. You've embarrassed yourself. You've wasted time. You've made decisions that still bother you when your mind is quiet and unguarded. But those memories are not living entities. They are echoes, faint, distorted sounds bouncing around the walls of your consciousness. They only possess weight and influence if you choose to feed them, if you choose to relive them endlessly like a spectator addicted to their own suffering. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words were not meant as passive advice. They were a direct call to reclaim sovereignty over your mental space. The external world may have shaped your past, but it cannot dictate your present unless you allow it. The past can only imprison you if you voluntarily sit in the cell and lock the door yourself. The old version of you is stitched together by these stories of failure, of shame, of missed opportunities. It is made of assumptions you carry about who you are, built entirely on who you used to be. And if you do not challenge those assumptions, if you do not recognize that the past is dead unless you keep it alive, you will remain trapped. To kill the old self, you must stop rehearsing those tired, heavy stories in your head. You must stop giving stage time to the narrative of who you were. Stop playing the same reruns of regret, shame, or failure as if they are still relevant today. Every time you allow those old scripts to roll in your mind unchecked, you are inviting a ghost to sit at your table, a ghost who has nothing new to offer you but limitation and heaviness. You must stop allowing the ghost of who you were to drag chains across the floor of your present life, disturbing your peace and anchoring you to a past that no longer exists. Every chain rattling in your mind is one link you forged by choice, by revisiting old wounds, repeating old dialogues, and breathing life into stories that should have been buried long ago. Every time you catch yourself reliving a mistake or wallowing in old wounds, you must interrupt that process, like a sentry guarding the gates of your mind. Remind yourself with clarity and force, that person no longer exists. I am not obligated to carry their mistakes into today. Their failures, their insecurities, their bad decisions do not belong to me anymore. Let the past die so you can live, not just survive, but live as someone new, someone untethered by the dead weight of yesterday. Freedom begins when you stop arguing with history and start building who you are right now. Anytime you catch yourself dwelling on a past mistake, pause and say, that person no longer exists. I buried them. I decide who lives now. Refuse to carry the corpse of yesterday into today. Chapter 5. Take ruthless responsibility. The old self loves to blame. It clings to excuses like a drowning man clings to debris, desperate for something external to hold accountable for every failure, every frustration, every missed opportunity. It convinces you that the chaos of the outside world is to blame for its shortcomings. It finds comfort in pointing outward, at parents who didn't do enough, at circumstances that seemed unfair, at bad luck that appeared at the worst time, at the people who hurt you, at the things that went wrong. It thrives on the illusion that if only the world had been different, if the winds of fortune had blown in your favor, you would already be who you want to be. This is the old self's favorite song, a lullaby of excuses that lulls you into powerlessness, into victimhood, into stagnation. This is how the old self survives, not through strength, but through deception. It convinces you that your life is the sum of what others have done to you. It creates a narrative where you are merely a bystander, powerless against the tides of circumstance, helpless in the face of fate. It thrives on the emotional payoff of blame, because blame feels easier than responsibility. It seduces you into outsourcing your growth to people and situations outside your control. But every time you do that, you give away a piece of your power, trading ownership for comfort. But the Stoics rejected this weakness completely. They recognized that this finger-pointing is not a shield. It's a cage you build around yourself, a prison you volunteer to live in. They knew that real power does not live in what has happened to you, but in how you choose to respond to it. They understood, at their core, that strength begins and ends with personal responsibility, with the unflinching acknowledgement that your life, your mind, and your actions are yours alone to shape, no matter how unfair or difficult the world has been. No one else can live for you. No one else can carry the burden of your choices. No one else can decide who you will become. And until you accept this, you will keep recycling the same narrative, stuck on the same level, waiting for external circumstances to shift while your potential gathers dust. You will stay at war with reality, bitter and exhausted, because you are demanding the world to change while refusing to change yourself. The hard truth is this: you cannot kill the old self while clinging to the habit of blame. You cannot step into a new version of yourself while rehearsing the old script of resentment and pointing fingers at your parents, your past, your luck, or the injustices of the world. Blame is the soil in which your old self grows, nourished by resentment, bitterness, and helplessness. It is a toxic ground that only breeds more of the same weakness you claim to want to escape. Every time you blame, you breathe life into the old identity, the victim, the powerless one, the one who can't change because the world won't cooperate. The person you want to become will never be born in the soil of blame. That soil is infertile. It cannot grow greatness. It cannot grow freedom. It cannot grow resilience. If you keep planting seeds in that dead soil, nothing will sprout but bitterness and self-pity. You must uproot the weeds of excuse and plant seeds of responsibility. You must learn to say, "This is my life, my responsibility, my consequence. No one else can fix this for me." Even when it hurts, even when it feels deeply unfair, even when every part of you wants to scream that it's not your fault, you must choose to own it. You must understand that fairness is irrelevant. What matters is who will carry the weight and who will grow stronger because of it. Because ownership is where your power begins. It is the starting point of everything meaningful. It is the foundation upon which you can build a new self, one that is resilient, responsible, and unshaken by circumstance. That is where your new self will rise, not from the ashes of blame, but from the fertile ground of responsibility, self-command, and the unshakable truth that you are the only one who can steer the course of your life. This is how you stop being a prisoner of your past and become the architect of your future. Tonight, list 5 things in your life you are dissatisfied with. Then, next to each one, write how you are responsible for it, not how others contributed, but how you allowed it. This is not self-blame, it's self-liberation. Chapter 6. Discipline over emotion. The old self is a slave to moods, cravings, and impulses. It wakes up tired and stays tired, constantly waiting for the perfect mood, the right conditions, or some fleeting surge of inspiration to push it forward. It wants motivation before action, as if life will someday hand it a permission slip to begin. This version of you believes that discipline should feel good, that the stars must align before it can take the first step. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that discipline is not born from feeling, it's born from principle. It is not something you stumble into when you're in the mood. It's something you build and reinforce, one decision at a time, especially when you least feel like it. The old self waits for the right moment. The new self creates it. You kill the old self by acting in accordance with your values, regardless of how you feel in the moment. You silence the old self when you show up tired, uninspired, frustrated, and do the work anyway. You starve the old self when you refuse to negotiate with your moods and impulses. Each time you choose action over apathy, consistency over convenience, principle over pleasure, you chip away at the old identity and lay bricks for the new one. The truth is, waiting to feel ready is the greatest lie your old self will ever sell you. It will convince you to wait until tomorrow, until Monday, until the weather is right, until you've read one more book, or until life conveniently aligns to your mood. This is the favorite trick of the old self, a quiet, seemingly reasonable voice that tells you to delay, to postpone, to wait for an easier path that never arrives. But the Stoics remind us that life will never make it easier. You must become stronger. They knew that if you wait for the winds to calm before you set sail, you will rot at the shore. The sea will never still itself for you, and the storms will not ask your permission. Life is inherently chaotic, unpredictable, and difficult, and there is no guarantee that the ideal conditions you are waiting for will ever come. The universe owes you nothing, so you must stop expecting life to get lighter and start focusing on how you can carry heavier loads, how you can build broader shoulders and an unshakable spine. You must recognize that comfort is not coming to rescue you. Ease is not the path to transformation. You must choose to act when you're uninspired, when your emotions scream for comfort, when your impulses beg you to quit, when every cell in your body tells you to stop. That is when it matters most. That is when you drive the stake deeper into the heart of the old version of yourself, the part of you that seeks escape, that begs for softness, that pleads to be spared the weight of responsibility. When you stand tall, even in the middle of the storm, refusing to wait for clarity or convenience, you rewrite the story of who you are. You transform each tremor of hesitation into a declaration of strength. You stop living reactively, passively, and start living deliberately as the architect of your own evolution. You no longer wait for the perfect moment, you create it. That is when the new self is forged, not when you feel like it, but precisely when you don't. In the moments when your legs are trembling, your mind is weary, your willpower feels thin, and you want nothing more than to retreat into the old, familiar ways. That is the forge. That is where you choose who you will become. That is where the old self dies and the new self begins to rise, not with fanfare, but with quiet, ruthless consistency. The storm is not your enemy, it is your crucible. Choose one daily ritual, whether it's exercise, writing, meditation, and do it no matter how unmotivated you feel. Each day you act without needing to feel like it. The old self loses power. Chapter 7. Empty your cup. The old self is full, overflowing with assumptions, rigid opinions, false certainty, and the illusion of knowledge. It is weighed down by what it believes to be true, stubborn in its conclusions, and defensive when those beliefs are challenged. This fullness is not a sign of wisdom, but of fragility, a mind so cluttered with unexamined beliefs that there is no room left to grow, to question, to evolve. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." These are not empty words. They are a direct challenge to the arrogance of the old self, a warning that the moment you believe you have nothing left to learn is the moment you become a prisoner of your own ignorance. The old self clings to being right because it fears the vulnerability of being wrong. But to kill the old self, you must learn to empty your cup. You must approach life with a deliberate humility, with the curiosity of a student rather than the pride of a master. You must be willing to dismantle what you think you know, to admit when you've been mistaken, to surrender certainty in favor of growth. You must learn to unlearn, to question the beliefs you have inherited, the assumptions you have absorbed, the opinions you have clung to without ever examining them. Humility is not weakness. It is the chisel that clears the clutter from your mind and makes space for transformation. It is the invitation to evolution. The old self survives by convincing you that you already understand everything worth knowing. It thrives on the comfort of false knowledge and the illusion of control. It convinces you to defend outdated opinions, to reject feedback, to dismiss new ideas without consideration. It keeps you clinging to what is comfortable and familiar, even when it holds you back, because comfort is easier than change and certainty feels safer than doubt. It whispers that questioning your beliefs is dangerous, that admitting you were wrong is humiliating. But the new self, the self you are becoming, knows that true strength lies in questioning, in listening, in being open to the possibility that everything you thought was true may need to be reconsidered. It knows that no one ever grew stronger by doubling down on ignorance. It knows that the wisest people in history were those who admitted how little they truly knew. This self embraces the discomfort of not knowing because it understands that clarity comes only after confusion. It understands that being wrong is not a mark of failure but a signpost on the path to growth. The new self does not cling to being right. It is willing to be corrected, to be humbled, to let go of beliefs that no longer serve its evolution. It knows that letting go is not losing, it is making space. It understands that knowledge is not static, but fluid, ever-changing, and that wisdom comes not from rigid certainty, but from the courage to question, to revise, to learn. The process is not easy. It will bruise your ego. It will feel like losing part of yourself, like tearing down a house you've lived in your entire life, without knowing what you will build in its place. It will leave you vulnerable, exposed, uncertain. You will doubt yourself, question everything, and wonder if you are breaking apart rather than growing. But in truth, you will only be losing what was never serving you to begin with. You will be dismantling the scaffolding of old beliefs to build something stronger, wiser, freer. You will be making room, not for emptiness, but for wisdom, for awareness, for freedom. You will be clearing space for the version of yourself who is not afraid to say, "I don't know," and then go find out. Empty your cup so that it can be filled anew, not with the stagnant water of certainty, but with the flowing river of curiosity and growth. Every day practice the phrase, "What if I'm wrong?" Use it in conversation, in conflict, in self-reflection. Humility is the knife that cuts away the old self's arrogance, slicing through the layers of pride, defensiveness, and false certainty that have weighed you down for years. It does not wound you, it frees you. It removes the unnecessary bulk of ego and makes room for clarity, curiosity, and genuine growth. Without it, you will keep wearing the armor of who you used to be, too heavy to move forward and too rigid to evolve. Chapter 8. Harden through voluntary discomfort. Seneca practiced what he called voluntary hardship, stepping deliberately into the realm of discomfort when he had every reason and every privilege to avoid it. He chose to deprive himself not because he lacked comfort, but because he understood that comfort softens the mind and weakens the soul. He recognized that every moment spent in luxury without challenge chipped away at his resilience and dulled the sharpness of his will. He understood that a life wrapped in ease is a life wrapped in fragility, and that true strength is not tested when things are easy, but revealed when things become unbearably hard, when resistance appears, when every part of you wants to shrink back, and you choose not to. Why? Because the old self fears discomfort. It whispers, "I don't want to, I don't need to, or I can't handle this." It shrinks in the face of adversity, clinging to ease and familiarity, terrified of the unknown trials that lie beyond the boundary of convenience. It is the voice that tells you to stay in bed, to stay small, to seek warmth when the cold teaches resilience. It is the echo that tempts you to avoid challenge, because challenge threatens the fragile illusion of your limits. The old self hides in the shadows of what is easy, because it fears discovering how weak it really is when tested. But when you voluntarily suffer, when you strip yourself of your luxuries and expose yourself to controlled adversity, you prove to yourself that you can endure far more than your old identity believed possible. You learn to separate real suffering from imagined discomfort. You find out that the limits you thought defined you were never real. They were just comfort zones you built like fences around your potential, like walls around a small and shrinking world. You discover that the boundary between what you can and cannot handle is far beyond what the old self imagined, and that each act of discomfort redraws that boundary further and further. Every time you step willingly into hardship, you tear down a piece of that boundary. You carve new lines in your character where fear and fragility used to dwell. You rewrite the story you have been telling yourself about what you are capable of enduring. You prove over and over that you are stronger than the voice in your head, whispering excuses and softness. Each voluntary hardship becomes a hammer that breaks the fragile shell of who you used to be, revealing the sturdier, tougher self beneath. It builds a new identity brick by brick, forged in discomfort and proof of your own capacity to overcome. It is not suffering for suffering's sake. It is suffering as strategy, as sharpening, as self-renewal. It is a declaration that you will not be ruled by comfort, that you will meet the trials of life already prepared, already hardened, because you chose to suffer when you didn't have to. Once a week, deliberately deny yourself something pleasurable, skip a meal, and remind yourself what real hunger feels like. Wake up earlier than usual and step outside while the world is still quiet, reminding yourself that discipline starts before the sun rises. Take a cold shower and lean into the discomfort without flinching. Go for a long walk or an exhausting run. Push your body to move when your mind wants to stay still. Do push-ups and sit-ups beyond the point where you want to stop. Train your body to obey your will, not your emotions. Go without entertainment. Turn off the TV, close the apps, and sit in silence with your own thoughts. Resist the urge to reach for instant gratification, whether it's food, digital distractions, viewing explicit adult content, or idle comfort. Control your impulses and habits, not because you are punishing yourself, but because you are training yourself to be the master of your desires, not their servant. Each act of voluntary hardship is a funeral pyre for the old you, a small, controlled fire that burns away the weakness, the excuses, the dependency on comfort that has kept you stagnant. Every time you deny yourself ease, you remind yourself that you do not need it, that you are more powerful than your cravings, that you are in command. These small, intentional acts of discomfort accumulate into something far greater, the steady death of the old self and the slow, deliberate birth of someone unbreakable. Chapter 9. Beware the praise and the blame. Your old self is obsessed with what others think. It rises and falls on external validation, measuring its worth by the applause or disapproval of strangers, by the opinions and judgments of people who do not walk in your shoes. It craves approval like a thirsty man craves water, but that thirst is never quenched. It only grows stronger the more you feed it. It believes that your value is reflected in how others perceive you, and so it lives in constant anxiety, chained to the shifting winds of reputation and recognition. Every compliment becomes a temporary high, and every criticism becomes a crushing weight. You become a puppet pulled by the invisible strings of other people's perceptions, dancing not to your own rhythm, but to the unpredictable music of public opinion. The Stoics taught that reputation is outside your control and therefore irrelevant. They knew that the opinions of others are fickle, ever-changing, and built on assumptions you will never be able to control. They taught that to hinge your happiness or sense of worth on external validation is to surrender your freedom, to hand over the keys of your peace of mind to people who neither understand you nor care about your deepest values. They urged us to live not for approval, but for virtue, to act rightly, not because we seek recognition, but because we choose to live by principles we believe in. Every time you seek praise or fear criticism, you give life to the old, fragile version of yourself, the self that depends on others for permission to feel worthy. You reinforce the cage that keeps you small, reactive, and easily manipulated. And the more you chase approval, the further you drift from your own center, your own inner compass. You become addicted to the applause, unable to move without reassurance, unable to breathe without validation. To break free, you must learn to act from principle, not social media story views or likes, not applause. To measure your success by your own standards, not by the cheers or jeers of the crowd. You must become so anchored in your values that the shifting winds of opinion no longer sway you. True freedom begins the moment you stop performing for others and start living for yourself, guided by your own quiet, unwavering sense of what is right. This week, do one thing worthy without telling or showing anyone. Let your actions be enough. Let your worth be measured by your character, not applause. Chapter 10. Live as if you are dying. The most powerful Stoic exercise was memento mori, the constant remembrance of death. Not as a source of fear or morbidity, but as a sharpening blade that cuts away everything trivial, every excuse, every wasted moment. It is not meant to make you shrink in terror, but to awaken you to what matters, to jolt you into action before it is too late. Death is the ultimate Stoic teacher, the reminder that life is not something you can hoard, delay, or negotiate. Your old self believes there's always time. It comforts itself with the lie that tomorrow will always be waiting, that there will be a better moment to change, to begin, to act. It tells you that you can delay becoming who you want to be or doing what you need to do, because there will always be more days, more chances, more tomorrows. It whispers promises of tomorrow like a lullaby, lulling you into the illusion that time is infinite, that there will always be another opportunity to rise, to act, to transform. It convinces you that your goals, your dreams, your becoming can be postponed indefinitely. But the Stoics knew better. Life is short. The clock is ticking. Every second you hesitate is a second lost forever, vanishing into the void without mercy. Time is the one thing you cannot bargain with, cannot save, cannot recover. It slips through your fingers regardless of how tightly you try to hold it. If you do not kill the old version of yourself today, it may bury you tomorrow, not metaphorically, but literally. There are no guarantees you will wake up tomorrow with another chance to change. Every day you hesitate, you gamble with the one thing you can never get back. The old self survives off these gambles, keeping you distracted until the opportunity is gone. Living as if you are dying is not about fear, it is about focus. It is about stripping away distraction, hesitation, and laziness. It is about confronting the uncomfortable truth that your time is limited and acting accordingly. It is about looking at every wasted moment and understanding that each one is a nail in the coffin of who you could have become. Every day that you waste feeding the old self, indulging in procrastination, fear, or regret, is a day you will never get back, a day that could have been used to write a better story. It is about clarity, the kind of clarity that only mortality can provide. The Stoics trained themselves to walk with death beside them as a reminder, not of despair, but of urgency. They understood that death is not some distant, far-off event, but a constant companion shadowing every step. They knew that death is the ultimate editor, the force that clarifies what matters and what doesn't. It cuts through the noise, stripping away everything petty, trivial, or distracting. It reminds you that every day wasted is a day lost forever. It shows you that every delay is not harmless, it is fatal to your potential. When you live as if you are dying, you stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop postponing your goals. You stop letting the old self write your story. You begin to see how much of your time has been wasted on things that do not matter, on petty arguments, mindless entertainment, and meaningless distractions. You begin to understand that death is not the end. It is the reason to live fully now, to stop waiting, to stop hesitating. You realize how much of your precious time has been sacrificed to trivialities, to meaningless noise, to the comfort of procrastination. Every moment becomes precious because every moment is borrowed. Each sunrise is a gift. Each conversation is an opportunity. Each action is an offering to the fleeting nature of existence. When you look at the world through this lens, even the mundane transforms into the extraordinary. You realize that no experience will ever repeat itself exactly, that no day is guaranteed, and that you are living on borrowed time with every breath you take. To live as if you are dying is to live fully, deliberately, urgently. It is to step into every day with the awareness that this might be your only chance to become who you want to be. It is to wake up not with idle hopes of tomorrow, but with a sharpened sense that today is the only guarantee you will ever hold. It is to strip away all the noise and focus on what is essential, on what will matter when your time runs out. It is to see clearly how fragile this existence is, and to understand that your window of opportunity is not endless. It is closing faster than you think, and the sands of your hourglass are falling whether you choose to act or not. To live this way is to stop waiting for the right time, to stop living under the illusion that the conditions will someday be perfect, that the universe will conspire to hand you the exact moment when you'll feel ready to change. It is to realize that your life has been slipping away in small, unnoticed moments, scattered between distractions, regrets, and avoidance. And in that realization, something inside you shifts. You begin to hunger not just to exist, but to live, to leave a mark, to embody what you were meant to become before the opportunity is gone forever. It is to live with the fire of knowing that today is not a rehearsal. It is your life, happening now, with no guarantee of tomorrow. Every moment, every breath is part of the only performance you will ever get. There is no second act, no chance to rewind the clock and fix what you neglected or delayed. It is to recognize that what you do today is all that counts, not the plans, not the dreams, but the action you take while you still can. Every intention without action, every unspoken word, every neglected opportunity is a nail in the coffin of who you could have been. This awareness is the flame that burns away the old self and forces you to live, not as a spectator, but as a participant in your own life before the curtain falls for good. It forces you to stop sitting in the audience, watching your life pass by, while hoping the story will somehow get better on its own. It drives you to take the stage, to speak your truth, to act decisively because the script is being written now, and you are the one holding the pen. It is to understand that every wasted second is a second you will never reclaim, and to rise each day determined to leave nothing unsaid, nothing undone, nothing unattempted. It is to stare your mortality in the face every morning and remind yourself that there will come a day when you can no longer speak the words that matter or take the steps that could change everything. It is to live in such a way that you never have to wonder if you gave enough, tried enough, or spoke your truth while you still had breath. It is to walk through the world with the ferocity of someone who knows they are on borrowed time, who knows that every sunrise is not a promise but a miracle, a gift that must not be squandered. It is to move through your days not with casual indifference, but with an intensity that reflects the preciousness of time. It is to love deeper, to listen harder, to show up fully for the people you care about and for the life you've been given. It is to let that awareness shape every choice you make, from how you spend your mornings to how you respond to the obstacles in your path. It is to feel the weight and the urgency of this truth pressing against your chest every single day and letting that pressure fuel your commitment to action. Not just grand gestures or sweeping changes, but the small, quiet decisions you make hour by hour. The choice to show kindness, to stay disciplined, to focus when distraction tempts you, to pursue what matters rather than what is easy. It is to carry yourself with the urgency of one who knows the clock is always ticking and to treat every interaction, every effort, every breath as something sacred, because it is. It is to remember that there is no rerun, no second take, no guarantee of tomorrow. It is to stop wasting your days seeking comfort and distraction and instead confront what matters most with full force and fierce honesty. It is to strip away the trivial and the meaningless, to let nothing slide by unnoticed, to live with an energy that matches the shortness of life. That is the urgency that will set you free, the brutal, beautiful truth that you are running out of time, and because of that, every moment is priceless beyond measure. It is the quiet but relentless drumbeat beneath everything you do, reminding you that your existence is a limited gift, not something you can stretch out endlessly. It is the sobering realization that time is the one currency you can never earn back, and every second squandered is a second gone forever. It forces you to confront the uncomfortable fact that you are living on borrowed time, and each hour that slips through your fingers is an hour that will never return. It is not a reason to panic, but a reason to live wide awake, fully engaged, fiercely present. It is the spark that burns away complacency and pushes you to extract meaning from every day, every conversation, every small and fleeting experience. It is the fuel that drives you to treat every sunrise as a fresh start, every encounter as an opportunity to give more, to love deeper, to leave nothing on the table. It demands that you look around at the simple, ordinary details of your life and realize they are, in fact, extraordinary because they will not last. It is what compels you to stop numbing yourself with distractions, to stop sleepwalking through your life, and to show up fully for the time you still have left. It urges you to say the words you've held back, to take the leap you've postponed, to quit tolerating the parts of yourself and your life that drain you. It tells you to stop waiting for the perfect moment, because that moment may never come, and to act now while you still can. Because when you truly know how little time you have, you finally begin to live, not with hesitation, but with intensity, not with empty promises to yourself, but with deliberate action. You begin to see the sacredness in the mundane, to appreciate the people in your life more fiercely, to seize the opportunities that once scared you, and to refuse to waste another heartbeat waiting for tomorrow. You stop waiting and start living because you finally understand that the clock will not wait for you. You stop postponing your growth, your purpose, your love, because you understand that life is not something happening later. It is happening now, in this breath, in this moment, and it is slipping away whether you pay attention to it or not. Each morning, remind yourself, today could be my last day alive. What kind of person will I choose to be? What action will I take today that honors the shortness of life? Write it down, then act accordingly without delay or excuse.